All right, so I'm going to have to admit up front, I took the whole challenge of doing a TED-like presentation very seriously, and it's my first one. And so if there are any TED aficionados in the audience, I will tell you probably up front I will fail miserably. Because at 57 years old, there's no way I can do an 8-minute presentation without help. But I did reduce it to some cards here, so hopefully it'll be more conversational than just a presentation to you. First of all, I'd like to thank the association. We have a great relationship with Director Jarvis and the National Park Service, and we're excited about the adventure that we have ahead in the couple years ahead. Today we're going to talk about, as he said, why the great outdoors have relevance with mostly international travelers. I know the next presentation I think is going to talk about it as far as domestic travelers. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about how do we do that in a compelling way. And then, as important to us, which I think is important to a lot of people, as you'll see when I start talking, how does that translate into, how do you connect the dots to actual people coming to enjoy these assets? So that's what I'm going to attempt to do today. So knowing that this is not to be a commercial, I think I do need to at least talk a little bit about Brand USA and say, we are the nation's destination marketing organization. Our mission is to grow international visitation to 100 million visitors, their spend to $250 billion, and our market share in all the markets. We were created in 2010 as a public-private partnership with the federal government with the Travel Promotion Act. We have over 450 businesses around the world that partner with us to tell the United States story, to actually sell this great destinations of the United States. We have a national travel and tourism strategy that was put in place that engages all the federal agencies that understand the significance of travel and tourism as our nation's #1 service export. And we're actively engaged in marketing the United States of America in 30-plus markets around the world that actually touch over 90% of the travelers that come to the international travelers that come to the United States. So that's the commercial, but it's important, I think, for you to understand that's what we're doing, and that's really kind of the centerpiece of my message today. But in the end, no matter what all of that means, in the very end, we're all about storytelling. Anybody that's in marketing knows that the way that you sell something, the way that you market something is to be a compelling storyteller. And we take that very seriously. We actually think that the privilege that we have to be able to take all that is the United States of America, think about the size of that brand, wrap our arms around what it means as far as travel and tourism, and then go out and sell that and market that, that's a huge privilege for us to be able to do. So storytelling is not new. It's been a compelling way to sell things for a long period of time. Probably no better time than right now to be able to tell stories. So many more channels, so many more opportunities to be able to do it in a compelling way like we've never had before. So I think that that's what makes it so very special. And what we're trying to do is put enough of a compelling story together to actually influence intent to travel, and not only much more than intent, but actual visitation to the United States. So what it does, when you do good compelling storytelling, it allows you to engage, it allows you to capture, it allows you to inspire, and then hopefully it motivates people to come and then allows them to immerse themselves into the destination, not only once they get there, but on their way to getting there. So what is the story that we're going to tell? And I guess the focus of the message today is we feel like that there's a compelling story to talk about the great outdoors. And the great outdoors in a very broad brush, but specifically as it relates to the centennial of the national parks that's coming up. Our research tells us that in all the markets, and specifically in the 14 markets where we're most actively engaged, that the great outdoors and the ability to come see all that the United States has and the possibilities of enjoying the great outdoors is one of the most compelling reasons why people come here. So that's why it is a huge impetus for us to be able to tell great stories. But it also, as a destination marketer, provides us great opportunities to deploy across lots of marketing channels. And also, we're the nation's DMO, but we have partners at the state, all 50 states, and we have partners in all the major cities within those states that are telling those exact same stories. And we have a little brand video that is introduced, and the theme of it is Dear America, and it talks about, if you've ever seen that, it talks about our brand ambassadors focusing on all that is the United States of America, the United States of awesome possibilities, and that's what we do on a regular basis. So we do have, as marketers, we look at what do we have as comparative advantages and what do we have as hurdles. And our comparative advantages are in this space of the great outdoors, is we are, and as it relates to where people are coming from around the world, we do have a large land mass. We do have a relatively not a dense population as it relates to the entire landmass. And we have thousands of unique geography and geological type opportunities that people can come see. And I can tell you that that is something that motivates people from around the world. And the fact that in this space, and I found this thing, I guess after the fact, now that I've been engaged for a couple years with the Park Service, that we actually innovated in this space, that we've actually found a way to sustain the assets and market the assets and do it in a way through a whole concept like the National Park Service that now has been shared and modeled around the world in all the developed countries around the world. So that's something that is a great advantage. We also have a competitive, you know, when we're looking at marketers, we're trying to figure out, okay, what are our barriers and what are our motivators? Our barriers are probably things that aren't a surprise to you. A lot of people look at us as unwelcoming, so that's happened for a lot of reasons. Most of the way they learned about us was through our pop culture, movies and music, and they still think that when they've seen New York and they've seen Disney, they've seen everything. Or if they've gone to Vegas, they don't need to go anywhere else. And how unfair is that not only to this, what we're talking about today, but to things in general. And the worst thing about it is they really don't know what they don't know. And so that provides us a tremendous opportunity for us to be able to do this compelling storytelling. And then there's that group, the millennials. And the millennials are driving everything, and I know the next presentation is going to talk about them. And they're all about the thing that's unique, the thing that they can brag about, the thing that they can socially market, and the thing that makes their trip something special. So everything that we're talking about in the great outdoors, particularly since that audience that is international probably doesn't know about these things, it fits that thing perfectly. So if you look at the hurdles, which are predictable, and the things that this platform provides for us, the motivators that we have to work with are tremendous. So it seems like we have this contradictory mix of things that are both motivators and hurdles that we have to overcome. So how do we, if they truly don't know what they don't know, how do we connect them with what they don't know to actually have them experience what they want to experience? So that's the challenge that we have in what we're doing. So the next thing is, well, how do we frame that? Using the great outdoors and the national parks, in this instance, how do we frame that and market that? We're choosing to do that with the big screen films. So we say big screen film because that's the medium. IMAX is a brand. And it is a very compelling medium that is growing around the world. So before I get a lot further into what that's all about, I want to show you what we're doing with it. This is a little trailer. So that's a film we're in production in. We're actually now several months into production, started on the West Coast, working our way east. The title is a placeholder. Meryl Streep as the talent is only a placeholder. That's not necessarily who that's going to be. But why are we using that? It's a tremendously active format. It is a format that engages audiences like nothing that has ever happened. How many people have seen IMAX films? I mean, all of us have. So let me just tell you a few statistics about what it means, big screen films around the world. It's actually a growing medium in 50 major countries around the world. It reaches a youthful audience and active listeners. 2/3 of the audiences have a college degree or better. 25% of the audiences are made up of school kids. 51% of the audiences have children under the age of 18. The audiences are highly affluent, and they're about a 50-50 male to female. The audiences are family-oriented. They're active learners that are from ages 4 to 94. And on the domestic side, 60% of the theaters are actually in the big cities. So, in short, it's a hugely diverse, large audience that we have a great opportunity to promote to. Now, we see the film by itself as a hugely compelling story. And it's not a documentary about all the parks. It's storytelling through the parks. But the activation around the film is going to be the thing that is the most as compelling for us. So we're going to debut this film in all of the major markets around the world, and then we're going to activate through the travel trade, the travel media, bringing our suppliers over that can then activate around the film as it relates to the stories they have to tell, the delivery of the products and services that they have to tell. And so that's about all I have as far as providing something to potentially, hopefully inform you and otherwise inspire you. And I look forward to the conversation with Director Jarvis and the stage. Which one's yours? Sit to you right here.
Okay, heard a lot from Chris. Very exciting work that's going on here. We want to have a discussion with the panelists about a reaction to that. And I would suggest, Chris made a couple of key points. One is this is targeted to the international visitor. And I know that there is a particular interest in drawing more visitors out of the Pacific Rim as well. I think there are some stories that we need to determine what appeals. You've presented essentially one great story, that's America's Great Outdoors, but there are many other stories that we tell in the national parks, particularly stories of American history that may be of interest as well. So I'm going to start with Stephanie and see what you think about how we can utilize our national parks and the American story of our historical experience to attract the international visitor.
Thanks, Director Jarvis. I thought your TED Talk was great, by the way, so congratulations. I loved what you had to say and don't disagree with any of that, but I would like to build on something that Director Jarvis just said, which is that we also know that travelers, many of them are cultural and heritage travelers. Our research shows that as many as 40% of travelers would check the cultural and heritage box. And we have such a great asset in our national parks in the historic resources that we have. Almost 2/3 of our national parks were created for their history, not just for the beautiful scenery. And so I'd love, as Brand USA moves forward, to think more about how we can bring some of our history to light, because I think it'd be very attractive to the people that we're trying to attract.
So I'm happy to respond to that. Obviously, in my 8-minute presentation, I couldn't tell the whole story, but the film in itself, as I said, is going to be a very, very compelling story. And as I also wanted to reinforce, it's not going to be a travelogue of the 400 plus parks and where they are and how you get there. It's going to be storytelling through the lens of the parks, and some of it probably will include the history of the parks, and some of it will include otherwise people and individuals and stories around the parks. But it's also going to be the centerpiece of our Great Outdoors Content Hub. So it is going to give us an opportunity to be able to leverage that film and all the other things that we're going to be doing around it as it relates to other television shows that we'll be producing around it, other advertising and marketing, public relations and whatnot, activating through social media marketing channels in creative and innovative ways to kind of capture the audience that are active in that area. So I think what it does, and what we are as to the core of an organization, is creating these platforms for us to tell the stories. So the Great Outdoors just gives us a very compelling platform to not only celebrate the centennial, but to really bring to focus those assets and those opportunities and those experiences, and from where they came, that most, particularly in the international audiences, have no clue about that. So we're looking forward to that.
Jerry, how about from your perspective from DNC and, being hospitality organization that will be accommodating if we're successful in moving this to 100 million. What changes are you thinking about or planning?
Well, we're obviously very excited about this. This is a wonderful product. Thank you for putting this together, and I think it's something that we can definitely use to help promote the United States as a destination. I would give one edit. I would love to see it if it started with a smiling U.S. Customs officer stamping.
Hey, it can't be everything to everybody.
But from the U.S. From the U.S. Travel side of the equation, you know that Roger Dow and his group are pushing very hard on this 430 million unused vacation days a year, on the $30 billion impact it would have on our economy. Is there an opportunity to use some of this also for domestic travel to help us, get the family back in the station wagon?
Sure. McGillivray Freeman Films is the one we're partnering with, and you saw that they have a great track record. They've been in the business for 40 years. They actually pioneered the whole medium and the whole opportunity. They produced Everest, which is the highest grossing film, and the one that's in the Smithsonian's been there forever and ever. So we have a distribution plan that obviously is focused internationally, but there's going to be interest domestically. So we see that the film itself will be distributed and will be available to domestic audiences. And I'm all about that travel effect that Roger's talking about, where people aren't using their vacation time, and the benefits not only to health and well-being to individuals, but the economic benefits associated with that.
And Director, to answer your question, we are having to invest more and more into multilingual programs, into really becoming more and more sensitive to the needs of the international traveler, making them as comfortable as possible when they're visiting our properties, and making it as pleasant a visit as we possibly can.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. John, you want to weigh in here as well and have a few comments on this as well?
So thank you. Listen, first of all, it looks fantastic, right? And to be able to go out and everybody tends to think about content as the visual. When you start talking about content, you start talking about the printed word and even the still images. But this clearly is night and day. I'd love to see people in it, right? So I know people love to connect with people, and we sit here and we show people. We're very proud of our national parks, and as we should be. But let's not forget that the audiences that we show them to happen to live across the street from the Coliseum, and or on a Greek island, or it really doesn't matter. Some of the most beautiful historic places on the planet. So I think when you talked about activation, which is what I'm really anxious to hear about, that storytelling aspect, is how do we tie that activation to the experiences that the people will be able to see and come over here, and I love the comment about how do we use it for Americans, because we're showing them something, and I'm hoping that there's this fantastic connect, if you will, to, hey, because you said, hey, let's take everybody over there and show them what it is. Well, when they get back here, what's that connection? Because it's that connection. I know some Austrians who have come to I can't tell you an Austrian family, I think they've been to 100 of our national parks. And they are more expert in national parks than most Americans I know. But they come back with these fantastic connection stories of not just the place, but the people. And that's what I love about this project, and that there's a storytelling aspect to it.
And just to reinforce that, I think the finished product, what you saw there was a trailer of what McGillivray had in their stock room to be able to kind of promote this, which obviously was many of the parks. But I think what you're going to see in the end is going to be actual real people with real stories that relate to the parks and to the filter of the parks. And then our activation is going to be obviously showing the film in market, in all the major markets that we're active in, and then activating around that as it relates to, it's one thing to tell the story and inspire, but then a lot of people don't really understand where Mount Rushmore is and compared to anywhere else, or where any of the other parks are compared to any of the gateways. So then we have to come in behind that and actually connect the dots to be able to say, well, you can do this, this, and this, and the travel trade and the travel media in market, in where we're active, are the ones that tells those stories. So that's the activation we're talking about, is once they come out of the theater inspired, then we figure out ways through those means, and our content hub. And our content hub is another thing other than just the theaters domestically that will also, because it's on the internet, everybody has access to it. So those stories that are being told, those that rich content that we create and the user-generated content that's generated off of the people being actively engaged in the site will benefit not only international audiences, which is what our focus, but also domestic audiences.
Ken, how do you see this fitting into the Gray promotional campaign for the Park Service's Centennial?
Well, I think first off, it's a wonderful movie in development, so I compliment you on that. You know, where I see this fitting in, and you touched on it a bit, Chris, is, you know, who goes to see these movies, you know, and that's getting out to the youth, okay? Whether it's the youth of this country or youth in other countries, we have an epidemic going on where kids are not getting outside. They're inside. If anybody saw the New York Times article yesterday on the Girl Scouts having an active strategy to increase more of the badges for people going outdoors, because they're all locked inside. They're doing robotics and stuff like that. So I see a piece like this, whether it's used internationally or we get to use it domestically, is inspiring youth, inspiring the kids to want to go outside, to participate in these things. You know, you attract them with the beauty and the majesty and the storytelling. You know, what I hope we can connect that to is, and a lot of these places, maybe not some of those places, but a lot of this is right in your backyard. So go outside, get outside, experience the national parks, experience the parks that are in your city or your state, because that's the important thing. We have to create a next generation of park goers, and I think it's pieces like this and how it integrates together that's going to activate those people.
What I can add to that is it doesn't matter which demographic group you're talking about, but particularly the millennial age group, or we know them as millennials, whatever, however they define them in the other markets. What they're looking for is the authenticity, the genuine experience, and the thing that they can brag about or call their own or to that's special. And I said that's what they don't even know that they don't know, is that just with the assets that the federal government has through the Park Service, there are so many opportunities for them to engage. And then it's not only an experience, but it's in a lot of cases outdoors. It's physical. It's feel and touch and experience. So we feel real confident that for all those reasons that you suggest, that we're going to be able to create a platform that helps in that regard.
That's fantastic. And then you can add in, you know, where we started with some of the historical and other stories that can be told. You know, I keep hearing the term over and over again. People don't know what they don't know. So the more we get that story out, the more we give depth to that story of what the Park Service system is, the more people will come, be interested, find relevancy, and come out. So fantastic.
Yep.
So do any of the panel members have any specific questions for Chris?
I had one.
Sure.
So what's the biggest challenge that you have, and how can the people in this room help?
I guess the biggest challenge is wrapping your arms around everything that 50 states, 5 territories, and the District of Columbia represents. It's impossible to do it by geography, and it's obviously tied to lifestyles. I'm assuming that a lot of people in this room represent the concessionaires and not otherwise people with interest in what the national parks bring to the table. So just first of all, keep doing what you're doing, delivering. You know, we can be the best marketers in the world, but unless we deliver on the product and experience, and we also know that there are challenges in some of our parks to be able to even accommodate increased traffic, particularly at certain times of the year. So I think our ongoing effort to continue to engage so that we're figuring out a way to add value where the value is needed is going to be the best way that we can work together to make everything we're doing work, not only just for the centennial, but beyond that as we create this platform that will live beyond the 100-year anniversary.
Chris, what are your target markets? What countries and sort of regions of the world are you focusing on, at least in this next couple of years of effort?
Well, we're actively engaged in our top 12 to 14 markets, certainly Canada and Mexico we share a border with, the UK and Germany, South Korea, Japan, emerging markets like China and India. Brazil's not emerging for Florida, but it is for most every other part of the country. Those are the major markets that make up what we call our established markets, those markets that know the United States have been coming for many years, and then our emerging markets where travel to the United States is really still a dream and is still aspirational. And so as we're seeding that dream, even for the dreamers that don't even know better, we can then create opportunities to get over the been there, done that mentality of markets like Canada and the UK, and actually the national parks and what they bring to the table can help us to overcome that in a lot of ways. Because even though we share a border and we like to think the Canadians know us as they would say, and as well as we know ourselves, there's probably a lot of opportunity there that they're not even aware of. So.
One of the efforts that we're working on within the Park Service is a redesign of our web presence to do a much better job in terms of trip planning. And so I think all of this effort, whether it's Find Your Park or Share Your Story, all of the Centennial promotional work that we're doing and your work can all mesh together, I think, in a much more seamless experience for the domestic traveler as well as the international traveler.
And as you're doing what you're doing with the Park Service, and as Gray's doing for you, what they're doing around the Centennial, as we're doing this, if we're all on the same table and collaborate, then it's just going to make all our efforts even that much better as we continue to move down that path.
Go ahead, Jerry.
I have a question for the both of you, actually. As the visa waiver program rolls out, and I think Poland might be on the docket, do we have targeted strategies for once those programs are in place, going after those countries? I mean, I think Poland has one of the most vibrant economies in the world right now, and would be a great target for us to draw international visitors.
I can tell you from our perspective, with the National Travel and Tourism Strategy, there's a goal to attract 100 million visitors by 2021. Last year, in 2013, was a record year of 70 million. So we have spelled out in our strategic plan a path to 100 million visitors, which actually talks about our top 20 markets plus 2. And one of those plus 2s is Chile, because Chile was the most recent addition to the visa waiver program, and the only reason they're part of the plus 2 is because they got visa waiver. We saw huge increases when South Korea was added. There was a 40% increase in traffic from South Korea. So though we get a number of travelers from Chile because it's a smaller country, we still have great potential. So we're poised and in touch with those that are having those conversations about visa waiver so that when those hit, we're ready to turn it on. Good.
Another comment, too, to think about as we think about sort of international promotion is our World Heritage sites in the United States. Many countries that are emerging markets, their only protected areas are World Heritage sites. It's the only system that they have. And so they're interested in what the United States has as World Heritage sites. And we have 22 in the United States. 17 of them are managed by the National Park Service. We just had one recent brand new designation, which is not ours, but we're very proud of it because it's well managed by the state of Louisiana, the Poverty Point archaeological site. But these could be really great marketing efforts as well, because I think they resonate with countries in terms of their own heritage, natural and cultural, that are out there as well.
And the beauty of the content hub that we're creating, because it's digital, because it's very functional and provides great opportunity for us to add to it, then that gives us opportunity as things come on board to pretty much introduce them into the mainstream almost immediately. So it's
okay, thank you very much. It was a great presentation and great questions, and we look forward to the next phase.